Met him on the job. Yes, sir.
So y'all were welders together on job?
Yes, sir. We worked on numerous jobs together.
Okay. And now, are you from this area?
I'm from Wakulla County.
Okay. How long you live in Wakulla County?
Most of my life.
And how long have you known Henry Segura prior to 2010?
Maybe 5, 6 years, maybe.
More than one job y'all work together?
Yes, sir. We both work for the same company a lot.
Okay. So not every job, but pretty frequently.
Yes, sir.
Had he, prior to November 20th, 2010, had he ever been to your house?
Yes, sir.
About how many times?
Once or twice. I know he brought his sons fishing with my sons.
Back on November 20th, 2010, did he come to your house?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Do you
I
remember?
don't recall the dates exactly, so.
Okay. You know what date we're talking about, though?
Yes, sir.
The one that we're here for, we've talked about
Yes,
previously.
sir.
Okay. The day that he came, was that a planned trip? Was he planning on coming out there?
Not really planned, just kind of called that morning, said he was in the area.
All right. And you're down in where?
In Wakulla County, Sop Chopper.
All right. So you're down Sop Choppy by the Sop Choppy River and Smith Creek and all that, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And he happened to call up and said he was in the area.
Yes, sir.
All right. When he said he was in the area, did he say he was going to come by or what?
Yeah, he just asked what I was doing or whatnot. I told him just, waking up, getting moving. So he stopped by. I told him it was fine. He was welcome.
All right. So it's you said you're waking up. Do you remember what time of day it was?
It was maybe 8, 9. It was early morning.
So 8 to 9 o'clock in the morning, he calls you up and says, "Hey, I happen to be in the area of Smith Creek and Sop Choppy River and Sop Choppy."
Well, Wakulla, yes, sir.
And are you familiar with where Henry Segura lives?
In Tallahassee.
All right. Not real close to where you are, is it?
Not very close.
Did he come over?
Yes, sir.
All right. When he came over, what'd y'all do?
Sit around and chit chat at most. I had my kids, and me and my son was getting ready. He was wanting to go bow hunting. He was wanting to start bow hunting. So I had previously the day before messed around with a tree stand with him, and we shoot the bow. And Henry shot the bow quite a bit. I had some buddies stop by with a boat. We looked at a boat project. I, worked for myself at home. And
you said you're shooting a bow, but a boat project.
No, sir. I'm saying we were shooting a bow with my son. I was just getting him shooting, and some other guys stopped by with a boat they wanted me to do.
Boat, not bow, correct?
Boat, yes,
okay.
sir. And I talked to him. Yes, sir.
Just making sure.
And I had spoke with him, for a little bit, and we all sat there and hung out and talked and looked at the boat.
And Henry's there for all this?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And basically just hung out until the lunch hours, and my girlfriend at the time had cooked lunch and just threw a football, hung out with my kids mainly.
All right. So y'all playing football in the yard?
Yes, sir.
All right. And
just tossing, just not playing, but.
Okay. Bow. What kind of bow we're talking about? There's all kinds of different bows.
A compound bow.
Okay. Fair to say that takes pretty good effort to pull back?
Yes, sir.
All right. Henry Segura shooting that bow as well?
He was attempting, yes, sir.
Okay.
He didn't do it very well.
Doesn't do it real well?
Not very.
Not a good shot?
No, sir.
Okay. This area y'all shooting at your yard, is it cleared out or how is it set up?
It's probably from maybe here to the back wall. Had a fence, big panel hog wire, what they call fence.
Okay, what is hog wire?
Just like, I would say maybe 6 inches long by 3 or 4 inches.
You talking about the gaps in the fence?
Yes, sir, the big square wire.
Big square gap in the middle of the fence?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Enough to kind of stick your arm through or something like that?
Yes,
if
sir.
Need be? But obviously to keep the hogs out.
Just keep everything out the yard.
Okay. Now, where'd you have this target set up for the bow shooting?
Just behind my house. It was just a hill.
Okay. If you said he wasn't a very good shot, did Mr. Segura miss the target?
Yes, sir.
What happens to the arrows when that happens?
They just either fall short of the fence or go through the fence.
Okay. So is he reaching through the fence trying to get into it, or what was the deal?
I believe we all did a few times, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Bushes around that fence?
Yes, sir. Just weedy. I just mow and weed it on one side.
But we're not talking about real thick thickets. We're just talking about some bushes,
Just swamp brush, you know.
swamp brush.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever seen Henry Segura with a gun?
Yes, sir.
When was that?
Just in our travels together, working around each other. I mean, most guys in that trade, you know, working out of town have, you know, firearms.
Okay. Do you remember, were you familiar with firearms at all?
Pretty much, yes, sir.
Okay. Do you remember whether it was a pistol or a rifle?
I know he had pistols before.
Do you remember whether it was a revolver or a semi-automatic? You know the difference between those two?
I know that he had, I've seen him with both.
I'm sorry?
I've seen him with both.
Seen him with both?
Yes, sir.
And approximately how you've seen it a couple times then?
Yes, sir. Just, I mean, he had one.
All right. Did you ever talk to Mr. Segura on the phone?
Quite a bit, yes, sir.
Okay. Do you know if he had more than one phone number? And we're talking specifically around that November date that we've just been talking about.
I mean, maybe a home phone and a cell. I know I had given him a cell phone.
Okay, let's talk about that, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. You say you gave him a cell phone.
Yes, sir.
When was that?
I don't recall exactly. I know we were on a job and it had got wet at my sister's house, and it was throwing the phone numbers around. Like, I would say if I went to call you, I would call my mother. You know what I'm saying? It was the contacts and the numbers were messed up.
Okay. All right. Did you take any steps, I guess, to remedy that situation?
I tried a few little home remedies, taking the battery out, putting in some rice and things of that nature, but it wouldn't stop it. So.
All right. So what'd you do with that phone?
I just gave it to Henry for one of his sons.
Okay. So as far as you know, did you give it to him? You leave him in his truck? What'd you do?
Basically left it in his truck. Just threw it in the glove box. It was a backup phone. If you had to have a phone.
Okay. Now the phone, we're talking about one that's got like a Verizon where you have a plan, or is it a prepaid type phone?
It's a prepaid phone.
So it still had minutes on it?
I believe so, yes, sir. And I couldn't swap my number, so I just, it wasn't no good to me.
Do you remember the phone number that was? Does 408-8669 sound familiar at all?
Maybe. I mean, I've had quite a few phones.
Okay. So he had his regular phone number, his cell phone, this phone number that you left in this truck, and then possibly a house phone or the ones that you...
Possibly, yes, sir.
Okay. Showing some previously marked the State's Exhibit number 123 and introducing the evidence. You recognize that?
Yes, sir.
What does that appear to be?
Same type of cellular phone.
The same kind of phone that we're talking about that you gave to Mr. Segura?
Yes, sir.
Now, Mr. Thornton, at some point, were you contacted by law enforcement?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did they make inquiries about that phone?
Yes, sir.
Did you work with law enforcement in order to show them the kind of phone that we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
What'd you do?
They wanted me to walk in the store and point it out.
Okay, did you do so?
Yes, sir.
And you pointed that phone out to them?
Yes, sir.
And same phone, or same type of phone?
Same
you don't know the
type
same
of
one,
phone,
but
yes,
same
sir.
type of phone?
So,
Same type of phone?
yes, sir.
The person that you talked about here, Henry Segura, you see him here in the courtroom?
Yes, sir.
Can you please point to him and indicate an article of clothing he's wearing, please?
Purple shirt and tie.
All right. May the record please reflect the indicated defendant, Mr. Segura. No further questions.
Cross. Mr. Thornton, when Mr. Segura came over to your house that Saturday, November 20th, 2010, and y'all were shooting arrows, you kind of laughed a minute ago when Mr. Fuchs asked you how he was shooting. Can you describe how successfully he was shooting at the target and how he was able to do so?
I mean, I don't think he'd ever tried it before, and it was kind of awkward for him, and he kept twisting the bow instead of holding it straight, and he missed quite a few times.
And were you aware at that time that Mr. Segura had been shot in the abdomen and was still recovering?
Yes, sir. I'd heard about it.
And you'd been on jobs with Mr. Segura as well, close in time to the murders, correct?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Segura was still limited at the time. He hadn't yet returned to a full workload, correct?
No, sir. I don't
So
believe
he wasn't able to carry heavy objects and things of that nature yet.
No, sir. I don't think so.
You indicated that y'all kept, or at least Mr. Segura kept missing the target, and the arrows would go kind of behind the fence and into those bushes. Do you recall that he was wearing a short sleeve shirt that day? Or you just don't have any recollection?
Yeah, I don't recall. I mean,
Okay. And the brush that had grown up around the target and behind the target where y'all were having to retrieve the arrows from, sticking your arms in that swamp brush, if you didn't have your long sleeve shirt on, that would give you some minor scratches and stuff as well, correct?
possibly, yes, sir.
I also wanted to ask you about how the plan came up to get together and put up the dog line. Y'all had come back from Tampa just real shortly before the murders took place, correct? You and Mr. Segura?
Yes, sir, I believe so.
And y'all had discussed on the way back up, getting together that weekend, that coming weekend that is, to put up a dog line at your house, correct?
I remember us talking about, I had dogs and he had dogs that we both bred or like bulldogs, and I had a couple and he had some, and we had talked about maybe, having puppies or, this sort of thing as breeding. But I remember us talking about the runner, yes, sir.
Do you recall specifically that y'all were gonna get together that coming weekend and put up the dog line?
Well, we were out of town talking about it. I mean, we didn't have a specific date or a date, but we had spoke about it previously.
But getting together in the near future, when y'all got back to town and putting
Yes,
up
sir.
the dog line, that was something that you all had made plans
Yes,
about,
sir.
correct? Okay, no further questions.
Yes. But to be clear, when he called you that morning, it was out of the blue, weren't expecting a phone call from him, were you?
No, sir.
Weren't expecting him to call you at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning saying he was in the area of stop shopping.
No, sir.
Let's talk about this bow real quick, compound bow.
Yes, sir.
As I understand a compound bow, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you pull it back, it's the most resistance you can, and then it kind of has a break where it gets real light as you're holding it back, correct?
Yes, sir. It was a youth model. It was my son, so it was a youth model, but it still has some resistance. Yes, sir.
But that's the way they work, where you pull them back and then it kind of releases, and then you hold them back here, and it's a lot
Yes,
easier
sir.
to hold, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How many pounds pull is it that we're talking about that you have to be able to pull back?
Probably 30, 35.
30, 35 pounds straight back like this, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then to hold it, it's much lighter than that 30 pounds.
Well, it's got what they call a overdraw. Once you break a certain point, it takes all the tension off of it.
So it's easy to hold once you're back.
Yes, sir.
But you got to pull it back to this point straight back, correct?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Segura was doing that, was he not?
Yes, sir.
And then you talked about he wasn't shooting it real good. He was twisting it rather than keeping it upright. That's a normal rookie mistake, kind of when you're taking a bow, right?
Yes, sir.
That's more of a form issue than the ability to actually pull it back and use your strength, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Got to hold it up straight in order to shoot it right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So really what you're talking about, he was struggling with it and hadn't done it before, is more of a form issue, not the ability to actually pull it back and
Yes,
set
sir.
the arrow. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. From
All right.
what I've seen, I mean, it's just his first time, I guess.
Okay. No further questions.
The juror have a question of this witness. All right, if not, you can step down, and we need to keep him any further.
No, sir, Your Honor.
No, you're not.
All right, you're excused. Thank you for being
All right.
here. Call
Thank
your
you.
next witness.
State calls Vance Wiggins.
Please, clerk, be sworn, please, sir.
You swear affirm testimony about giving this case to the truth, and all truth, and nothing but truth, so help you God.
I do.
Have a seat and slide up the rail,
Right.
please.
Yes.
Good morning, Mr. Wiggins. Will
Good
you
morning.
please tell us your name and spell it for our court reporter, please?
Vance Wiggins. First name Vance is V-A-N-C-E. Wiggins, W-I-G-G-I-N-S.
And where do you work?
I work for the Florida Department of Revenue Child Support Program.
And what do you do there?
I am the Revenue Service Center manager. I am the I manage the actual office that services the Big Bend area, the 6 counties in the Big Bend area.
Okay, and the particular part that you manage, is that the child support program?
It is the child support program here in Tallahassee.
All right, and what are your duties as the service center manager and for the child support program?
My duties are actually to oversee operations, everything from customer service to administration, and to do what we call strategic planning.
About how many folks do you oversee over there?
Right now I have 39.
Okay. And how long have you been in your current position?
I've been in this position for 18 years now.
Okay. So does your unit, I guess, it exists to help parents who have custody of their children get financial help from the non-custodial parent or the parents that do not have custody of the children?
Yes.
Okay. And how does Department of Revenue go about trying to hold a non-custodial parent accountable to paying child support to the custodial parent?
The first thing that we do is get an obligation established.
What does that mean?
That means what we first have to do is first determine who is the legal father of the child. If that's determined by the person either signing the birth certificate or paternity affidavit, or it will actually go to court and have testing done and have the person adjudicated as the father. And then once that's done, then generally what we'll do is get the obligation established based on the financial information that the parties provide.
Okay. So first, the custodial parent would be trying to get assistance. And after that happens, then y'all are going to establish an obligation by either seeing if the birth certificate is signed or looking at, if it's not signed, maybe try to do DNA testing to see who the father is.
That's correct.
Okay. And if a man signs a birth certificate of a child, what does that mean in the eyes of Department of Revenue?
He is then the legal father of the child.
So that means his responsibility is assumed.
That's correct.
Okay. And does Department of Revenue then require a DNA test after that to just confirm that he's the father after he signs the birth certificate?
No DNA testing would be done.
Okay. So the only way y'all are doing DNA testing is if you look at the birth certificate, it's not signed, and then at that point you might do it to try to determine who the father is.
That's correct.
Okay. So once the Department of Revenue has established the identity of the non-custodial parent, either by DNA testing or by looking at that birth certificate, is the non-custodial parent then notified of how much child support they owe?
They actually receive what we call just like in this particular case, they notice of proceeding to establish administrative support. And what that does is tell them that we are seeking to establish a support order.
Okay. And then do y'all send certain notices to let them know how much is owed?
We would, once we figure out how much amount is actually owed based on the parent's incomes.
Okay. Do you send a proposed order out?
During our administrative process, that's the first order that we send out, is to let the parties know what we are stating or will be stating the amount owed so that they can send a response back to us.
And that proposed order would let them know, here's the amount you owe per month, and then here's any amount that you owe that's in arrears already from the time the child is born to that point.
That's correct.
Okay. And then do you also send like a final order?
Yes.
All right. And what does the final order say?
The final order is based off of the responses that we've received, and it actually will tell you how much is owed per month, any arrears that's owed, where to pay it, and all the information that's needed so that we can get the money to the child.
And is that final order sent if basically there's no response to the proposed order, if the non-custodial doesn't respond to that proposed order?
That's correct.
Okay. So proposed order sent, if no response, then you send the final order. If you get no response after that, and the non-custodial does not pay child support, what happens next?
We start our enforcement actions.
All right. And do you send the non-custodial parents notices to let them know that there is an obligation, you haven't received payment, and there might be actions, like you said, that are taken against them?
Yes, we actually send a letter that lets them know that they have this particular obligation, and if they don't pay the particular obligation, then the enforcement actions would begin.
Okay. And back in 2010, did y'all actually send 3 of those notices?
In 2010, we used to send 3 notices, correct.
And then if the non-custodial party still doesn't pay, what types of actions are available to Department of Revenue to take if there's been no payment after those notices?
We can administratively suspend driver's license, professional license, do what we call tax offset, which is have the IRS send the money to us if they file for a tax refund. We can also suspend recreational license, and we also have available to us the ability to file a motion for contempt.
Okay. So all of these, I guess, privileges that the person has gained through the state, whether it be a professional license, a driver's license, all of these things can be taken away if they're not paying their child support back to the state, to that custodial parent.
Correct.
All right, I want to walk through some of those. When you said DOR has the ability to suspend professional licenses, would a professional license to be a welder be included in that?
Yes.
Okay. And so Department of Revenue can place suspensions on welding license, welding certifications?
Yes.
All right. And you said driver's license suspension. So that would mean that a person can't drive legally. And if they do, they might get a criminal charge for driving on a suspended license.
That's correct.
Okay. And you don't say, well, if this person has to drive out of state for their job, we won't suspend their license in that case. Y'all just suspend the license.
That's correct.
Okay. You mentioned a tax offset. What does that mean?
The tax offset is for when a person files for a refund through the Treasury Department. Basically what we do is let them know, instead of sending the money to whomever filed that tax refund, it has to come to the department.
Okay, so they wouldn't get their tax refund. That comes straight
That's
to y'all
correct.
then. Okay, and then to give to the custodial parent.
That's correct.
All right, and then an income deduction order. What does that mean?
The income deduction order is a notice that we send to the employer. It lets the employer know that a certain amount of money needs to be deducted from the check and sent to the Florida State Disbursement Unit so that it can be dispersed to the mother.
Okay, so that would mean y'all can take the money straight from their paycheck instead of having to rely on them to send it to you.
That's correct.
And then finally, what's a property lien?
The property lien is if you happen to own a vehicle, then we can place a lien on that vehicle. If you own land or mortgage, we can place the lien on the land or mortgage.
Okay. And finally, if those actions are taken or put in place, y'all still aren't receiving money from the non-custodial parent, is incarceration or actually putting someone in jail something that Department of Revenue can do to enforce child support?
Yes, it would be what we actually use as a last resort to seek enforcement of the order.
But does that happen pretty regularly though?
Yes.
Unfortunately?
Yes.
Okay. And that would mean basically the person has what's called a writ attached to them.
That's correct.
They are picked up by the police and they're put in jail until they can pay X amount of money to get out of jail to that non-custodial, or to that custodial parent.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about this case specifically. For the record, I'm now showing you it's been pre-marked and also stipulated as part of evidence as states 120A through G. The documents that I've just given you, have you had an opportunity to look through those in the past?
Yes.
All right. And are those documents that are normally kept in the regular course of business at Department of Revenue?
Yes, it is.
And is it Department of Revenue's practice to keep track of records like that to show what's been sent and received in a child support case?
Yes.
And are the records maintained through a computer system at Department of Revenue?
It is.
And do you have access to that system?
Yes, I do.
And as your job as the first service system manager for your unit, are you familiar with how to read those records?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Yes.
Permission to publish these as we go.
You may. And we have now put a microphone there, so it may aid things a little bit.
I saw maybe y'all will be able to hear me better. Okay. All right, so how did the child support case against Henry Segura begin?
His case began with Ms. Peters going to Department of Children and Families and applying for benefits. Once you apply for services through Department of Children and Families, you then have to cooperate with the child support program.
Okay, so once she applied for state benefits, then what did Department of Revenue, you mentioned that y'all sent him a notice of proceeding. What does that mean?
Notice of proceeding was to let him know that we would be establishing an administrative support order for the obligation that we would be required to pay for the child support.
So letting him know, hey, your baby's mother has applied for state benefits. We're going to start a child support case against you.
Correct.
All right. And then the first document that we have here in evidence, 120A, after y'all sent him the notice of proceeding, did he send you all a letter?
Correct.
When I say you all, I mean Department of Revenue.
Yes.
Okay. I'll zoom in as much as you need me to. Just let me know where you're comfortable at. And what I'd like you to do basically is just to read this letter to us that the defendant, Henry Segura, sent to Department of Revenue on July 22nd, 2010.
To whom it may concern, in reference to case number 2009 DR 3502, I am petitioning the court to order a paternity test concerning the minor child, Javonte Segura, born on or around July 28, 2007. Newly discovered evidence relating to the paternity of said child has come to my attention since the signing of the birth certificate for the minor child, Javonte Segura. This evidence was presented to me in the form of a recorded voicemail left by the minor child's mother, Brandy Peters, on my home phone. In the message, she stated that I was stupid for signing a birth certificate for a child that was not even mine. She also stated that at the same time that she and I were engaged in a sexual relationship, she was engaged in a sexual relationship with someone else that she claims is the father. It is for these reasons I am asking the court to order a test for paternity and stay any order of child support until the results of the paternity test are known. I will make the voicemail recording available to the court upon request. I ask the court to consider and approve my petition as expeditiously as possible. Thank you.
Okay, and this case number that he has here, would that have been the case number that was created after Ms. Peters applied for benefits and a notice of proceeding was sent?
That's correct.
I guess it would have been created after she applied for benefits? Okay, and when he was sent a notice of proceeding, he would have seen that case number on the top?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and then it's signed Henry Segura?
Yes.
Okay. So he's written y'all a letter where he says that Brandy Peters has left him a voicemail on his home phone. And in the voicemail, she has told him that he's stupid for signing a birth certificate for a child that isn't his. So at that point, did y'all try to establish an obligation where y'all were going to give him a DNA test? What happened with that?
We would then proceeded with the proposed order. We would not do any type of testing.
Why not?
Because once the paternity affidavit section on the birth certificate is signed, we consider you the legal father of the child.
Okay, so despite what he's saying about how she's kind of taunting him, saying you're stupid for thinking he's yours, because he signed the birth certificate, he is assumed the father in the eyes of the state of Florida.
Yes.
Okay. So after receiving this letter, Department of Revenue in the state of Florida proceeded as they would even if you hadn't received this letter with the proposed order because he's the father on that birth certificate?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I want to show you what's marked as 120B. What do we see here?
That is the proposed administrative support order that we first send out to both parties.
Okay, and you told us before that this proposed order is the order that is sent to let them know how much that they owe in child support each month, and if there is an arrearage amount that they owe for the amount that exists since the child was born, it lets them know that as well?
Yes.
Okay. So I kind of want to just go through this line by line. This is stating that it's from the Department of Revenue Child Enforcement Program.
Yes.
Okay, and I'll do it this way. It's to Henry Segura Jr., Mustang Drive, his address here in Tallahassee,
Yes,
and it has the court case number on top.
it does.
All right, and if you could read to us the first paragraph here.
The Florida Department of Revenue Child Support Enforcement Program issues this proposed administrative support order, to you, the non-custodial parent, after having considered financial affidavits and or other reliable information concerning the income of the parents. We have taken into account the child support guidelines sheet. We propose to enter a final administrative support order, requiring you to provide support for your child or children listed in paragraph 3 as follows.
And how much is the Department of Revenue telling the defendant that he owes in child support every month there under letter A?
Under letter A, the current child support would be $744.47 per month.
And what about letter B? What does that say?
The retroactive child support in the total amount of $19,356.22 for the period from 7/1/2008 to the present, to be paid at a rate of an additional $74.45 per month.
Okay, so this total amount that we see here, $19,356.22, that's the total amount retroactive that he owes for the last 3 years since the child was born in 2008?
Yes,
Okay. And this would have been the child's birth month?
correct. Or it would have been 2 years prior to her going in and filing for benefits.
Okay. And so I guess is that amount calculated by the amount he's supposed to be paying every month, and then multiplying that by the amount of months the child has been alive?
That's correct.
Okay. And so he is then supposed to pay that amount for every month the child's been alive, in addition to this $744.47 per month going into the future?
Yes,
Okay. So the total amount would be the $19,356.22 plus the $744.47.
correct.
Okay. And then what does letter C mean?
C, provide health care coverage for the child when the coverage becomes reasonably available to you, and take all necessary steps to enroll the child or children at the time in your group health plan.
So in other words, if you get or if you can get benefits, you've got to put them on your plan.
Yes.
All right, and then what we see below tells him where to send payments to?
Yes.
What do we see under number 2 here?
It lets them know that DOR has jurisdiction of the subject matter of this proceeding. DOR also has personal jurisdiction over you because you were properly served in Florida with the notice of proceeding to establish administrative support order.
And that notice of proceeding, you said, is what would have been sent to him after she applied for benefits, but before he wrote y'all the letter saying, I need a paternity test because she's saying I'm stupid if I think the kid is mine.
Correct.
Okay. What does paragraph 3 here say?
You have a legal duty to contribute to the support of the following child or children because you are you are the father of a non-custodial parent and a non-custodial parent.
All right, and then the child listed here is named Javonte Segura, and it has his date of birth.
That's correct.
And it says the other parent, which would be the custodial parent, the parent who has custody, is Brandy Peters.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, I apologize. But at that point, after that, that's when you sent him the final administrative support
That's
order?
correct.
Okay. Before we go on to the final order, I want to show you one thing really quick. For the record, I'm opening what's already been admitted into evidence as 39B, the paperwork from the Master Bedroom Entertainment Center. All right, looking on the front of these documents, does this appear to come from your child support enforcement unit and be labeled to Brandy Peters on Saddle Creek Run?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. Did you have an opportunity to look at these documents before court today?
Yes.
All right. What does this appear to be?
That is the financial affidavit that is sent to Mr. Segura for him to complete when we sent out that notice of proceeding to establish the administrative support order.
Okay, so this would have been sent before he received that proposed order, when he received that notice of proceeding.
Correct.
Okay. I guess around the time, or actually received in July 2010, so July 2nd, 2010, so before the time that he sent this letter saying, I need a DNA test because she says I'm not the father.
Correct.
Okay. So looking at this document, he writes his full name here, and he writes the other parent's full name here as Brandy Peters.
Correct.
And then it says you are the, and he can either check custodial parent or he can check non-custodial parent. Which box did he check?
He checked non-custodial parent.
Okay, what is this word that he wrote on top of non-custodial parent?
Alleged.
Okay, so in addition to checking the non-custodial parent box, he put alleged on top.
Yes.
He's the alleged non-custodial parent. Okay. Did he write that he has any sources of income here?
He indicated he had no income.
All right, and this would have been received by you all on July 2nd of 2010?
Yes.
And he wrote that his last job was at Wright Welding. He made $7.25 per hour.
Yes.
And he worked at that job from June of 2009 to May of 2010?
Yes.
Okay. He says that he has to pay child support of $130 a week already for another child that he had outside of marriage?
Yes.
Here he said he has no assets, no cash, no stocks, bonds, or trust, no real estate that he owns.
Yes.
He said that he has a current mortgage or rent payment of $1,165 and he owes a $123,000 balance.
Yes.
He says he has student loan monthly payments of $53 and owes $850.
Yes.
And he also has a debt to Farmers Furniture of $450 that he makes payments on of $45 a month.
Yes.
Okay. Again, he says he already has to pay child support for a different child, and he has to pay $130 a week on that.
Yes.
He's saying down here he doesn't have any health care coverage.
Yes.
He doesn't pay any child care expenses.
Correct.
Tell us what he wrote. Can you read this to us?
It states, I have strong that this child is not mine. I have been told on a number of occasions that this child is not mine by his mother, as well as recorded voicemail messages from the mother stating this. I am disputing the paternity of said child. No order of support should be issued until the issue of definitive paternity is, can't see that word.
Maybe addressed?
Addressed. I am requesting my due process concerning the matter of paternity.
Okay, and he signs and he dates it June 29th, 2010?
Yes.
And so this document that we just looked at here is a copy of what he filled out by hand and sent to your office, and then you all mailed to Ms. Peters.
That's correct.
Okay, so Ms. Peters has seen that he is contesting paternity.
Yes.
And once again, we have him saying, this child is not mine. Based on that, there still was not any DNA test done, correct?
No.
He's assumed to be the father because he signed that birth certificate.
That's correct.
Okay, so he's the person that's liable for child support.
Yes, he is what we consider the legal father.
Okay. And then along with that document, what do we have here?
That one is the proposed administrative support order.
Okay, so another copy of what we just looked at?
Yes.
Okay. This one shows on page 2, it goes on to tell how the retroactive amount was calculated?
Yes.
Okay. And it looks like the proposed order, as you said, was mailed out in August of 2010?
Yes.
And attached to the proposed order that was mailed to Ms. Peters, what is this?
That is a copy of the child support guidelines that it lets the parties know how we calculated or came up with the child support amount that we are stating is being owed.
Okay, so you're looking at the amounts he's made in the past and what he is capable of making based on any certifications he has, and you're saying you're capable of making this amount, so this is the amount that you owe.
That's correct.
Okay. And then it has those totals on the second page
Yes.
for both the mother and the father?
Yes.
All right, so you said before that y'all sent the proposed order out in August of 2010. And then at that point, after that, you sent the final administrative support order. Is that
Yes.
what we see in 120C?
Yes, that is the final administrative support order.
All right. I'd like to just walk through this one. From Department of Revenue Child Enforcement Program, about this case, Brandy Peters versus Henry Segura, has the case number, and this is the final administrative order. I'd like for you to read, just starting right here, maybe through paragraph 2.
Okay. The Florida Department of Revenue Child Support Enforcement Program, DOR, enters this final administrative support order, final order, establishing the child support obligations of the respondent, Henry J. Segura, Jr. Findings of fact and conclusion of law. 1. DOR has jurisdiction over this proceeding pursuant to Section 49.2563 of the Florida statutes, because DOR is providing Title 4D child support services on behalf of Brandy D. Peters, the custodial parent of the child or children named in the paragraph 3, and there is no support order in effect for the child or children. 2. DOR has personal jurisdiction over the respondent because he was properly served in Florida with the notice of proceeding to establish administrative support order on 6/22/2010, and 3, the respondent has a legal duty to contribute to the support of the following child or children because he is the father and a non-custodial parent. Name, Javonte Segura. Date of birth, 7/26/2007. Paternity has been legally established by affidavit or voluntary acknowledgement. The other parent of the child or children is Brandy D. Peters.
Okay, so in other words, she's receiving benefits from the state, and so you also need to pay this amount of child support that you owe.
Correct.
Okay, the child support is again for Javonte Segura, and we know that you're getting all these things that we are mailing to you because you received the notice of proceeding back in June.
That's correct.
And after that point, what he had sent to you was the letter and then the document where he wrote out the fact that I'm not the father of this child. She says I'm not.
He would have written it prior to this.
Prior to this, yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm saying between the time that she's applied for benefits and y'all have sent that notice of proceeding, that's what y'all have received
That's
from him.
correct.
You haven't? Okay. So going down a little bit, what does paragraph 6 say?
This final order is being entered without a hearing because the respondent did not request an administrative hearing within the time limits contained in the Notice of Rights section of the proposed administrative order served on the respondent pursuant to Statute 49.25637B, Florida statute. The respondent is deemed to have waived the right to request a hearing.
Okay, so this is the final amount that he has to pay because he didn't try to dispute it or request a hearing.
That's correct.
Okay, and trying to dispute it doesn't mean just writing in and saying I'm the father because he's the one on the birth certificate, right?
That's correct.
Okay. What about paragraph 7?
7, DOR makes the following findings of fact. The respondent's imputed net monthly income is $3,709.42. 76.2% of the parent's combined net income. The other parent's income, the other parent's imputed net monthly income is $1,160.54. 23.80% of the parent's combined net income. Monthly child care costs are $0. Monthly health care coverage costs for the child or children are $0.
Now he sent this document that we just saw a minute ago back to you saying that he has no income. In order to find this amount, do you look at what he's made in the past? Also, if he has a spouse, what they make, like what his household makes? Do you look at those types of things?
We look at that, and we also use, based on his certification, the amount that he should be capable of making.
Okay, so even though right now you're saying that, you can't just say, well, I don't have any income, I'm unemployed, so I don't have to pay child support. You say, we know that you're capable of making this amount, so this is the amount that you're expected to pay.
That's correct.
Okay. And paragraph 8 says this is the total amount that the child needs every month, and $744.47 would be his percentage of that he owes to
That's
Brandy
correct.
Peters.
That's
Okay.
correct.
And then she's the one who's accountable for the difference.
That's correct.
Okay. This paragraph 10, I don't want you to have to keep reading the same thing, but does that basically say if you don't have health care coverage now, if you have the means to get it or you're able to get it, you have to add him to give him benefits too?
That's
him
correct.
meaning Javonte Segura?
Yes.
Okay. And then what about 11? What does this say? Can you read this to us?
The respondent shall pay retroactive support from 7/1/2008 through the present, a total of 27 months, not to exceed 24 months prior to 6/22/2010.
And then what? Go ahead.
The retroactive support amount of $20,100.69 was calculated at the same monthly rate used in paragraph 9 above. The respondent's total retroactive support obligation is $20,100.69 and to be paid at the rate of an additional $74.45 per month, which the respondent has the present ability to pay.
Okay, so in the last document, we saw that that amount was $19,000 and some odd dollars a month. Now it's up to a little over $20,000. I'm sorry, a month, but now it's over a little over $20,000. I guess was the last month's payment that was not paid, was that added in now to the arrearage amount that he owes?
That's correct.
Okay, so now when this was sent out, so in September of 2010, at that point, the total amount that he owed in child support to Javonte Segura was $20,100.69, and that does not include that current month's amount for payment, which would be the $744 we saw.
That's correct. It would not.
Okay. And again, in number 12, it's saying you're voluntarily unemployed right now. We know you're capable of making, X amount of money. And so this is the amount that you owe, basically.
Yes.
Okay. An earning amount equal to full-time employment at minimum wage is presumed.
Yes.
So y'all are calculating that based on the $7.25 per hour.
It's actually based on, in this particular case, he was imputed at what a welder would make.
Gotcha.
Per hourly.
Because he has the professional.
Correct.
Okay. All right, so this is, again, telling him that as of October 1st, 2010, he has a current amount of $744.47 per month that he has to pay, and a retroactive amount of $74.45 per month, because he has a total amount of $20,100.69 that he owes for this child.
Yes.
Okay, and that, again, that $20,100.69 is based on his monthly amount times the amount of months that the child has been alive that he owes support and arrearage for.
Correct.
Okay, and then it tells him how to make payments.
Yes.
Okay, and does it tell him this is the amount that you owe unless it's suspended, terminated, vacated on appeal, or superseded by a court order?
Yes.
Talks about health care coverage again, and if there's any changes, that's your address?
Yes.
Okay. What do we see in paragraph F?
In paragraph F, we have income deduction order. The respondent's income shall be subject to immediate income deduction for the payment of the support obligations in paragraph A, and any delinquencies or past due amounts that accrue after entry of this final order as provided in section 61.1301, full 9.2563, section 7 and 9, and full 9.2564, section 10 of the Florida statutes. A separate income deduction order is being entered. The respondent is responsible for paying the support obligations under this final order to the state disbursement unit until the income deduction begins.
So in other words, if you get a paycheck, it's going to be taken out of your paycheck?
Correct.
All right. What about G?
Unemployment compensation. The Florida Agency for Workforce Innovation or its successor agency shall deduct, withhold, and pay to Department of Revenue 40% of any unemployment compensation which may now or later be payable to the respondent. The amount may not exceed the total amount in paragraph A, and any delinquencies or past due amounts that accrue after the entry of this final order.
Okay, so if he gets paid for being unemployed, that's something that can be, that Department of Revenue can use towards child support as well?
That's correct.
All right. And again, he's voluntarily unemployed at this point in Department of Revenue's eyes. He's capable of earning the amount that you guys have let him know that he owes every month in the arrearage amount. And you said that it says that there's a lack of sufficient reliable information concerning his actual earnings. So an earning capacity equal to full-time employment at minimum wage is presumed?
That is actually for the petitioner. That's letting him know that for Miss Peters, because she was not working, we imputed her at the minimum wage.
Okay. And so that was ordered in August of 2010, and then it looks like it was filed in September of 2010?
Yes,
All right, and then it would have been sent to both Henry Segura and Brandy Peters?
yes,
And the final page, just letting him know he has a right to appeal?
yes.
All right, so after receiving that, did the defendant make any payments to Department of Revenue?
No, he did not.
All right, let's see what Henry Segura received in the mail next. Looking at 120D. What is this? Whoops, maybe I should let you see the title.
It is the notice of IRS certification for intercept of federal tax refund.
What does that mean?
Basically, it's letting them know that we have sent a letter to Department of Treasury to let them know to send any due refund to him to us.
So his refund will actually be intercepted and sent straight to Department of Revenue?
Correct.
Okay, and this lets him know that?
Yes.
So when he received this on September 19th of 2010, was Brandy Peters, would she have been sent one of these as well?
She would not have. I take that back. We did in that during that time. We did send to both parties a
Okay.
copy of the letter.
Okay, so this would have been sent both to Brandy Peters and Henry Segura on September 19th, 2010.
That's correct.
All right, you told us before that once, or back in 2010 anyway, this is how y'all did it. Once the final order was sent out, if there was no payment at that point, then Department of Revenue begins sending out notices of non-payment to the non-paying party, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so looking at 120E, what do we have here?
That is the first notice of non-payment.
Okay, so I guess pretty self-explanatory. He didn't pay, and this is letting him know, hey, you didn't pay, you need to pay?
Correct.
Okay, and it was sent to his address at Mustang Drive?
Yes.
And what date was it sent?
October 3rd, 2010.
Okay, can you just read the first paragraph here?
The Florida Department of Revenue Child Support Enforcement Programs records indicate that as of 10/3/2010, there is a past due amount owed on your child support case number 1320907661. To resolve this past due amount, please pay $818.92 by 10/18/2010 or contact our office to establish a written agreement for repayment. If you have already made a payment to satisfy the past due amount, thank you.
Okay, and then it tells him how to make payments.
Yes.
Was any payment made by Henry Segura after receiving that first notice of non-payment?
No, it was not.
And what is the next thing that Department of Revenue sent to Henry Segura after they still didn't receive payment?
We send the second notice of non-payment.
Okay, and once again, addressed to Henry Segura at his Mustang Drive address.
Yes.
And when was this one sent?
That one was sent on 10/20 of 2010.
Okay, if you could just read the first paragraph here to us.
The Florida Department of Revenue Child Support Enforcement Programs records indicate that as of 10/20/2010, there is a past due amount owed on your child support case, court case number 3502DR. You have not responded to our previous notice. We are concerned because in addition to other adverse actions that may have already been taken or are in process, the following significant actions may have already occurred because you have not paid your child support.
All right, and just going through each one of these one by one, there's a box, and it says, a lien recorded by the clerk of court which may prevent you from selling or mortgaging real estate that you own. Is that what you were telling us is called a property lien?
That's correct.
Okay, so in other words, he's not going to be able to sell or mortgage his house that he owns.
Correct.
Okay, and is that box checked?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so this is telling him that a property lien may have already taken place, or we might be in the process of getting one against you
That's
if you don't
correct.
make a payment. All right, and then it says Florida law allows the department to recover money owed for child support using a variety of means. The department may request. This one says a negative credit rating because of your past due child support account. This seriously limits your ability to obtain credit in the future, such as credit cards, bank loans, or a mortgage. Is this box checked?
It is.
Okay. And then the next one says suspension of your driver's license, and it has his driver's license number. Is this box checked?
Yes.
Okay, so it's letting him know that this is something that we're going to do if you don't pay this amount. We're going to suspend your driver's license.
Correct.
We're going to, it's going to negatively affect your credit rating.
Yes.
Okay? And then it tells him how he can make payments.
Yes.
All right? Did the defendant make any payment to Department of Revenue after receiving that second notice of non-payment?
No, he did not.
All right, what is the next thing that Department of Revenue did after Henry Segura still had not made any payment after that notice?
We send the final notice of non-payment.
Okay, and this is what's in evidence as 120G. All right, up here we have the Department of Revenue seal, final notice of non-payment sent to Henry Segura at his address. What date was this sent? November
3rd, 2010.
Okay, can you read the first paragraph for us? Let me zoom in for you.
Okay. As of the date of this correspondence, you have failed to pay the past due amount of $1,637.84. The Florida Department of Revenue Child Support Enforcement Program is offering you one last opportunity to clear the account or to establish a written agreement for repayment. If you fail to pay the past due amount or enter into a written agreement for repayment within the next 14 days, the department will have no alternative but to aggressively pursue administrative and or judicial enforcement actions to collect the past due amount.
Judicial enforcement actions. What does that mean?
We would refer the case to for a motion for contempt to be entered and try and obtain a writ of bodily attachment against them.
Okay, and that's the writ that I was asking you about before, where a person is put in jail until they can pay a certain amount.
Correct.
Okay, so judicial enforcement actions meaning that you could go to jail if you don't pay.
Correct.
All right, and then below that, does it say an immediate response is required in giant, bold, all capitalized letters?
Yes.
And then it tells them how to make a payment?
Yes.
Did the defendant make any payment?
No.
Did you respond in any way?
Yes.
How?
We would then actually suspended the license.
Oh, I'm sorry. The defendant didn't make any payment in response to y'all.
Oh, not to us, no.
But then at that point, if he doesn't make any payment, y'all are going to take the actions that you've repeatedly warned him that you're going to take.
That's correct.
Okay, and at that point, it's, you said suspension of his license?
That's correct.
Okay. Professional licenses, driver's licenses, anything that he's received from the government?
That's correct.
Okay. So by mid-November of 2010, the total amount of retroactive child support would have actually grown from the $20,100 that he owed on that final support order in September. It would have grown then by 2 months of non-payment, so 744 times 2, that would be added to that $20,100 amount.
That's correct.
Okay, so somewhere close to $22,000 at that point is what he's gonna owe. And then his monthly amount at that point in November of 2010 that he owed, it says is $1,637.
That is what was the past due amount, and it's actually added to that 20,000.
Okay,
So he would owe that plus the current support of $744 that was due each month.
okay. So in total, we're looking at upwards of $23,000 that he
Yes.
owes Department of Revenue. And by November of 2010, there had been six, I guess, total notices sent to the defendant informing him of what he owed.
Yes,
And he'd also been informed, as we saw through these notices, by mid-November of 2010 that his tax return was going to be taken, right?
yes,
That there was going to be a lien on his property,
correct.
that his driver's license or professional licenses would be suspended or revoked,
That's correct.
and that he could go to jail if he didn't pay.
That's correct.
And does Department of Revenue also restrict a person's ability to get a passport if they owe a substantial amount of child support?
Yes, we do.
Tell us about that.
If you owe more than $2,500 in arrears, we certify your with Department of State that you owe that balance, and you're not able to get a passport until you either do a written agreement with us or work out some arrangement with us.
Okay. And did you tell us the amount, I'm sorry, that you,
$2,500.
so if you owe more than $2,500, you can't get a passport and leave the country?
Correct.
All right. And he, I mean, obviously owed about $20,000 more than that.
That's correct.
Did Miss Peters, did Brandy Peters call the Department of Revenue to check on the status of her case against Mr. Segura and the payments during the week leading up to Friday, November 19th of 2010?
Yes.
Okay. What day did she call Department of Revenue to check on the case and the payments?
That would have been, I'm trying to remember, need to look at the actual notes. It'll give me the date.
I'll come back to that question.
Okay.
All right, so I just have a couple of questions regarding how a non-custodial parent like Henry Segura might get out of owing his child support, might not have to pay it anymore. We saw that he wrote those letters, but what if he came into your office and he said, look, you know, got my own DNA test here, here's the results, this is not my child. Would he still have to pay that $23,000 that he owes?
Yes, he would.
Okay. And is that because that is the total amount in arrears that he's owed since the child's born?
It's actually because even though you're bringing in a DNA test, he is still considered the legal father, and until he goes to court and disestablish paternity, we still would he would still be obligated for everything that we've advised him he is obligated to pay.
Okay. So there would have to be some type of court proceeding where someone said, despite you signing the birth certificate, we've checked all these tests. There would have to be some type of court order and proceeding to establish that.
That's correct.
Okay. And he would still owe that arrearage amount from the time the child was born.
Yes,
He wouldn't have to pay going forward.
correct,
Okay. If that happened.
correct.
All right. What if the custodial parent, so in this case, Brandy Peters, what if she came in and said, you know, never mind, I don't want Henry Segura to have to pay? Would he still have to pay that $23,000, that total amount?
Yes, because she was receiving benefits from the state of Florida.
Okay, so if she's receiving benefits from the state of Florida, he is required to pay child support.
That's correct.
Okay. What if the child, what if Javonte Segura, what if something happened to him? What if he died? would the defendant still have to pay that 22 or 23,000, that total amount?
No, not if the child passes, no.
Because there's no child to pay for then.
Correct.
All right, just a moment.
We're about due for a break anyway. Why don't we take 15 minutes? Let the jury step out either side, anything?
No, sir.